Hello there, this is Eric Bourne with Harrisburg Area Community College, and today we are going to be talking about two grammatical errors. We're going to be looking at misplaced modifiers and dangling modifiers. Now, this is one of my favorite grammar topics of the semester because it's not so much the grammar that's important as in the way that it gets you to look at your sentences. Here's really our starting idea. Your readers are not necessarily going to look at your sentences the way that you intend. There's always a bit of a barrier to communication. Language is not precise. Something gets muddied up pretty frequently along the way. Now, there are a couple of things you can do in sentences that introduce really unexpected meanings into your sentences that really confuse the reader. And they cause problems to such an extent that we call them grammatical errors, and we talk about them in terms of these modifier problems. But more broadly, what I'm interested in having you do is think about your sentences through the eyes of your reader. See the way that they might misunderstand you, and look for strategies to help them understand you better. To illustrate this in action, I am actually going to turn to my good friend Microsoft Paint. And we're going to narrate a little scene here. It's going to lead us to a sentence, and that sentence is going to be a problem. Now, the first thing that I need in my scene, actually that is too small. I need a big fat brush right here. Here we go. Now we're going to start by drawing a car. And these are the best wheels that you have ever seen. There we go. Let's get our bumper here. Here's the trunk. It's the front. Windshield. To the front. Ooh, that's a little front heavy of a vehicle. You know what? That's okay. Let's get our side doors here. Our front windshield. Oh man. This is the best vehicle that you have ever seen drawn in paint, and that's fantastic. Now, where is our vehicle driving? Alright. We are actually driving down the highway. Here we go. Here's the highway. That makes me look like I'm about to veer off the road. Why don't we try that? Ooh, here we go. Here's the other side of our highway, and you know what? We do need some dash dotted lines here down the highway. Excellent. Okay, so we're driving down the highway here. And we notice off to the side of the road, next to this nice little tree, that there is a dog. Are you ready for this awesome dog? Let's see, those are 4 legs. Let's give herself a tail. Now we need a head. Now this needs to be really cute. Let's give him some big ears. A little snout going on right here. There we go. It needs to be hairy. Let's get some fur on this dog. Alright, so we're driving down the highway. We see a dog who is perilously close to the edge of the highway. Look at this right here. That's only like 10 feet or so. That's scary. That dog's going to get hit by somebody. But not only that, we actually know this dog. It's a friend. Our friend Steve actually owns this dog. This dog's name is Rudy. We know this. And we're concerned for Rudy's well-being. So let's say that we are so concerned that we break just a rule of the road that no one actually should break. We say, man, I need to send my buddy Steve a text message. So, let's start writing our text message. Let's tell Steve, I saw your dog. That's not a very good message, is it? We need to tell our friend Steve where we saw his dog so that he knows what the problem is. Okay, I saw your dog drive, start typing while Eric, down the highway. Alright, hopefully you're already looking at the sentence and laughing at it with me. There's a problem with this sentence. If you don't see the problem with it, if you don't see why it's silly, pause the video a moment and take a peek at it. Alright, y'all with me? The sentence is silly because it tells us that the dog is actually driving down the highway. Our problem is that this is telling us, hey, cute dog is actually over here. See his cute snout and got little paws on the steering wheel? The dog is driving the car. we have a sentence that does not make sense. The ideas kind of, as we're writing the sentence, seem like a reasonable order to put them down. But it's actually a problem. In order to fix this sentence, we need to get the modifier phrase next to the word that it is actually modifying. Now let's talk about a couple of these terms. Now, we've identified this as a misplaced modifier. What does that mean? Well, a modifier is a group of words, a word, a phrase, whose job is to describe, give you more information about something else in a sentence. Now, in our sentences right here, the modifying phrase is this one, driving down the highway. Its job in the sentence is to tell you a little bit about what one of the things in the sentence is doing. Now, in our case, the subject of the sentence is I. And that's really what should be driving down the highway. However, the modifier is going to attach to the word that is closest. That's why we have an error right here, because in the sentence we end up saying that it is the dog driving down the highway. We can create a fix when we put the modifying phrase next to the word I. Now, we've talked about what a modifier means. The word misplaced is really straightforward. It just means that the modifier is in the wrong spot. It has been misplaced. It has been placed incorrectly. So most of the time, fixing a modifier simply involves moving the words next to what they are supposed to describe. Let's demo our second grammatical problem for the day. And we're going to need to expand our little drawing here just a little bit. So let me grab what I have here so far, and we're actually going to need to move it down a piece right here. Here we go. Now, let's say that it is morning. And what happens in the morning? On the horizon, we find that the sun is rising. Oh man. And anyone who drives early in the morning can attest, these sunbeams are shooting right at your eyes, making it very hard for you to drive. Oh, we better make the sun a little bit brighter. There we go. Isn't that a wonderful sun? The best sun you've ever seen. Now let's say once again that we want to tell somebody about the problems we're having trying to drive while the sun is coming straight at us. Okay, very good. Now maybe we're going to try to avoid the problem of last time. We're going to start our sentence with the phrase driving down the highway. Okay, now what is it that we want to say about driving down the highway? The sun was shining in my eyes. Okay. Now once again, and maybe this is less obvious to you, describing this situation has led us to a problem. This sentence says something very silly. Let's try to tease this out just a little bit. Now let's identify the modifier phrase. Now we're using the same one as before. It's driving down the highway. Now, what does this modify? I told you before that this phrase is going to modify the noun, the pronoun, that is right next to it. In this case, the subject of the sentence. That means that this modifying phrase is adjusting. Hey, how did I lose my underline? Let's try that again. Underline, good. We end up telling our reader that the person, place, or thing driving down the highway was the sun. That means that we're looking at our little diagram right here, and the sun is right inside here. It is glowing. It is casting beams all around our car. It is blinding everything within hours radius. We're probably going to all die in a giant flaming inferno fireball because the sun is actually on the highway. Our sentence now means something very silly because of the way that we have constructed the sentence. The error here is a dangling modifier. When we ask who is driving down the highway, the answer is me. We need that personal pronoun I in there to tell our reader who was driving down the highway, but that word I, does not show up in the sentence anywhere. That's what it means for a modifier to dangle, when the noun or pronoun it's supposed to be giving you information about does not actually appear in the sentence. Yellow text is not easy to read. There we go. Driving down the highway. In order to make the sentence work, the next word needs to be I. Now we have an opening that correctly tells our reader who was driving down the highway. Now we just need to connect the rest of the ideas in. So we need to get something about sun shining into my eyes. Okay. How about this? A little bit different wording, but yeah, that still gets the ideas in there. Different verb choices, but you know what? We're still communicating the same basic idea. And now we have a sentence that does not have that confusing dangling modifier. Alright folks, let's try to expand on these ideas with a number more examples, and I think that I am going to be done working with Microsoft Paint. As lovely as my little illustrations are, let's go back to a much more friendly environment for me writing sentences. Let's go back to Microsoft Word here. And we're going to just talk about a few examples here. For each sentence, I'm going to recommend you, as I show you the sentence, pause it until you see why it's silly. First, I saw the bell tower running through the campus. Now let's first start out by finding the modifying phrase. We're not talking about the subject or the verb. Here's the object of our verb. The part that describes something is right here, and we're going to underline it. Very good. This is our modifying phrase. It's telling you what one of these objects in the sentence are doing. Now, the problem with what we have here is that currently running through the campus is modifying the bell tower. This is silly. The bell tower does not run. Who in the sentence is more likely to be running through the sentence? That'd be way back over here. So in order to fix this sentence, we're actually going to move it. I'm going to move it at the start of the sentence because it's an introductory phrase. I'm going to put a comma after it. Now, I have a sentence that makes sense. Here's a second one, and this one is a little bit trickier. I've almost been married for 7 years. Pause the video and consider that for a moment or two. Very good. Did you figure this one out? The sentence is actually saying something fairly silly. I've almost been married for 7 years. The problem word here is the word almost. Now, likely most of you were really charitable this sentence and thought, oh, he's talking about a length of time that he's been married, and it's been more than 6, almost 7. Now this is a meaning of the sentence that makes sense. This is how the sentence should read. Let's go back to the way that it was. When almost is over here, what does it mean to almost be married? Ah, you're with me now here, aren't you? To be almost married means that you were in the process, you were getting started, you were engaged, maybe you had a ceremony. Heck, maybe the bride is waiting for you up there at the altar, but you chicken out and run away. With the almost over in this start of the sentence, that means that I have not actually been married. When the almost goes over here, that means not only have I been married, but I've been married for a number of years. That's why we would consider this a misplaced modifier problem. The meaning of the sentence with the almost over here is so ridiculous to be extremely unlikely. Even if you're, ran away from a marriage, what does it mean to be almost married for 7 years? Did you keep this up for that long? I don't know. Here's another one for you. This one I think is a bit more straightforward. Pause the video a moment and see if you can spot the modifier problem. Alright. Looking at this sentence, we see a familiar kind of phrase. We talked about this with... I'm sorry. What did I screw up? There we go. Here's my sentence again. We have an adjective clause. Now we talked about these in terms of comma rules, and now they're showing up again in terms of modifiers. These sorts of phrases can easily be misplaced in the sentence. Now, what in this sentence is an object that can actually be spoiled? Now, it's sitting next to a trash can. Now, this is a very unlikely candidate for this modifier. A trash can that's spoiled? What is your trash can made out of? Steak? No, that doesn't make sense. Now, perhaps we could move this by our subject. No, let's not talk about people being spoiled. Let's talk about food that was spoiled. Here's a meaning of the sentence that makes a lot more sense. The food that was spoiled. Another misplaced modifier. Okay, I have 2 more to work through, and now we're going to start looking at the more tricky dangling modifiers. Once again, pause your video and see if you can figure out what the difficulty is right here. Alright, very good. Now, with a dangling modifier, the problem is usually something right here at the start. Lecturing to the classroom. Now, as we know with modifying phrases, the next word is very important, because that tells you who is lecturing to the classroom. Now, the only noun in this sentence, actually, that this modifier could be connected to is right here, students. But notice that that confuses the sentence. The sentence is telling us that not only were the students lecturing, but they were also falling asleep. Now, maybe some of you sleep talk. Maybe you talk in your sleep. But if you're talking about grammar in English while you are sleeping, we probably need to have a conversation. Maybe need to get you in for some counseling. I study this, and I still would be worried about you in that scenario. Who is much more likely to be lecturing to the classroom? You got it. That'd be yours truly. And that would be the professor. So, what we're going to do is we're going to put the professor right here in the sentence. We're going to put it right after the modifying phrase so that our opening works. Now I just need to figure out how to get this content up here in a way that makes sense. Gonna need a verb, something for my professor to do. How about the word noticed? The professor noticed that many students, I need a slightly different verb tense here, had fallen asleep. Okay. Now we've got a sentence whose modifier does not dangle, and that still talks about the right content. Last one, and then we'll wrap things up here. Walking outside, my shirt got soaked in the rain. Pause for a moment and consider why this one is silly. Alright, very good. You should be looking at the start of the sentence here at this phrase right here and saying to yourself, who is walking outside? Now, probably you're thinking maybe some sort of person, maybe we need an I in this sentence, maybe my buddy Phil needs to be the subject of this sentence. But consider what the sentence is actually telling you. I'm not in this sentence. My buddy Phil is not in this sentence. I have rain, I have a shirt. And shirt is the noun or pronoun that is sitting next to this pronoun. This sentence is telling you that my shirt took a walk outside while it was raining and predictably got soaked. Now, my shirts do not walk. I don't know about yours. This sentence tells me something very silly. To fix this sentence, I'm going to need to add something in right here. I need at this moment to tell you who is walking outside. Now, I feel like picking on my buddy Phil, so let's put him in right here. My buddy Phil is now the subject. Walking outside. Now we need to talk about his shirt getting soaked in the rain. Okay. My buddy Phil maybe like this. I don't like that verb. It'll do for now. Walking outside, my buddy Phil got his shirt soaked in the rain. Okay. Now we've gotten rid of our modifier problem, this connection between subject and modifier phrase. Alright, we've been talking for a while. Let's wrap this up. I started off by encouraging you to think about how your readers react to your sentences, about thinking about your sentences through their eyes. You have some exercises on your worksheet, and most of the worksheet is just these exercises. With each of them, I want you to look at that sentence until it makes you laugh. All of them say something silly. Now, it's going to be a nerdy sort of laugh. I apologize. Make sure that there isn't anyone in the room that you need to impress. When you see how the sentence tells you something silly, you're ready to fix it. When you see why it's ridiculous, you see the problem that you need to fix. If you find a problem with a phrase being in the wrong spot, be simple in your fix and just move the offending modifier. If it's a dangling modifier, you're going to have to do some more work. You're going to need to add what the sentence is missing. It's going to be missing a subject. You're going to have to add a noun or a pronoun. But either way, as you do your work this week, reflect on how your words sound to others, and you'll do well with this work.